Iron gates of Elara pushed them open. The air inside the estate felt thick, smelling of damp earth and something unnervingly sweet, like rotting lilies. It had been 3 days since her younger brother Toby had vanished during the village egg hunt, and the trail of silver fur had led her here, to the place the elders only spoke of in hushed, terrified whispers. The briars grew tall and jagged, their thorns resembling hooked claws that caught on her wool coat as she stepped onto the overgrown path. In their fires, then nature the town. And prowling gnome, he will tine the earth. And inside a single golden egg pulsed with a rhythmic sickly light. The sound of grinding teeth. It tilted its head, the movement sudden and mechanical, like a broken puppet. "The sister comes to trade," it hissed, the words forming directly in Elara's mind. "The sister brings a needle of bone to a garden of glass. Do you know the rules of the hunt, little weaver?" Drandans and Imolopus vanished into the mist, leaving behind a trail of frost on the dead grass. Elara took a deep breath and stepped into the first corridor of the labyrinth. The walls were crowded with eggs, their porcelain surfaces with intricate, disturbing seams. One showed a house on fire, another showed a mother turning her back on a weeping child. As she walked, the air grew colder. She felt a tugging sensation at the back of her skull, a feeling like a thread being pulled from a sweater. She passed a large, jagged egg that hummed with a low frequency. Against her better judgment, just at its surface, she saw a memory of her father laughing as he swung Toby in the air. It was a bright, happy moment, but as she watched the porcelain vendors, the Tobias laugh. The silence where that sound used to be was a physical ache in her chest. The further Elara went, the more the labyrinth seemed to shift and change. The paths didn't follow the laws of geometry. She caused the left pave what intensity of a weeping angel she had passed 10 minutes ago. But now it was draped in fresh, wet moss. The smell of the lilies was becoming overpowering, cloying and thick enough to taste. If hurt is Elvang and the doubting the power of is, remember your journey. To go straight is to forget everything but the hunt head. If she told them presents on the plains without the pays effortrations of a Trandas, she forgot the name of her first pet. She forgot the color of her bedroom curtains. She forgot the taste of the apple pie her mother used to bake on Sundays. The center of the labyrinth was a wide circular clearing, its branches white and leafless, reaching toward the sky like skeletal fingers. The pale lepus was waiting there, perched on a branch, its long legs dangling. It was meticulously cleaning a large, jagged tooth with a piece of silk. "You are faster than the others," the lepus remarked, its amber eyes fixed on Elara. "You must use that needle to sew your shadow to the roots of the tree. Once the shadow is bound, the body follows. You will become the weaver. You will watch the children come and go, and you will collect their memories like pearls. In exchange, the boy goes free. He will wake up in his bed, believing he simply fell asleep in the woods." "Will he remember me?" Elara asked, her heart hammering against her ribs. The lepus paused its head to a sharp and natural angle. "He will remember me?" Elara asked, her heart hammering against her ribs. The lepus paused as bee hazarded able to the calmer. The lepus was waiting there, perched on a branch, its long legs dangling. It was meticulously cleaning a large, jagged tooth with a piece of silk. Harry series of it. "Hey, sorry, Toby," she whispered. She had a life he had ahead of him. The sun on his face, the taste of fresh bread, the chance to grow old. Then she thought of her shadow to the tree. She was bringing the concentrated weight of everything she had refused to get. Because the Bane more, and Neges and Sheriff, for eternity. She was bringing the concentrated weight of everything she had refused to get. "I am not a weaver of nightmares," Elara shouted over the rising wind. "I am his sister." She slammed the golden egg against the trunk of the dead oak. The shaled presence of the face shifted and groaned. "You are breaking the contract," the lepus screamed. It tried to grab the golden egg, to pull it back into the safety of its basket. But Elara was faster. She reached out and snatched the egg from the creature's skeletal grip. The moment her fingers touched the gold, it felt warm, pulsing with a heartbeat that matched her own. The moment they stepped across the threshold of the Blackwood estate, the sound of the collapsing garden vanished. Behind them, there was only a quiet, overgrown forest, the ruins of an old house barely visible through the trees. The terrifying labyrinth, the skeletal hare, and the walls of eggs were gone, as if they had never existed. Parent remembered the salve of the grinding teeth and the sight of her own memories dissolving. She reached into her pocket, pulled out the bone needle. It was no longer glowing. It was just a piece of old bone, dull and ordinary. But as she looked at it, she saw a same dark 3 tails. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the bone needle. It was no longer glowing. It was just a piece of old bone, dull and ordinary. But as she looked at it, she saw a thin dark thread and tire art over reasons for ages of vein. She said as a feel bone I earth creaching, is finally in those in person day. Is also a and even use so snow curled from chimneys, and the smell of wood smoke and baking bread filled the air. It was so ordinary, so painfully normal, that Elara felt a sob rise in her throat. People called out to them, relieved and asking where they had been. Elara made up a story about getting lost in the dense thickets near the old manor, a story the villagers accepted with a mix of scolding and hugs. "But they have it here, Garden," she commanded. "The hunt is over." She would keep the memories of the village safe, one stitch at a time. The years passed, and the story of the girl who went to Briar grew into a woman of quiet strength, known for her skill with a needle and her uncanny ability to tell stories that made people remember things they thought they had forgotten. She never married, and she never left the village. She stayed to watch over Toby, who grew into a tall, happy man with no memory of the golden egg or the skeletal hare. A voice a low, soothing hum. She carried a needle made of bone, and a heart full of fire. She met a king of ash and bone, and she told him that some things are too precious to be traded. The amber light in the corner dimmed and then went out. The pale Lepus was a creature of the forgotten, and as long as Elara remembered, as long as she told the story, he had no place. She had held the line for a lifetime. She had kept the memories alive, and in doing so, she had kept her village safe. She picked up the bone needle one last time, and used it to sew fabric. She pressed it against her own heart. Toby, now an old man himself, sat on the step